Holy moly. So, this is Eli Loving here with TikvahMinds, and this is our new show. This is the deal. You know, it's been obviously the past few weeks. If you've obviously been watching things politically, it's been kind of a crazy world we live in. And obviously there's a number of things that could be discussed with that topic. I think one thing that is really important to talk about first and foremost is a little bit about what this show is about, and the purpose of this show, and the purpose of me doing it this way, and me presenting information in around art and business, and how we might be rethinking some of those things, some of the things that frankly I wasn't taught in school, and be able to share those things with you. Obviously it's with things happening politically and looking at the world around us, sometimes it can prove to be a difficult thing, and especially when as artists that we are focused in around in a lot of ways we are presenting our work as a visual medium, or a visual speech, if you will. And it's, from my perspective, it's sometimes rather hard to watch things when we're literally seeing, regardless of whatever spectrum you live on, that we're literally seeing those things being destroyed by the tech giants and those sort of things. And when that happens, in terms of free speech happening, it's obviously hard to watch that take place. But regardless, I think the most important thing that we can do as artists, as entrepreneurs, if you will, is to continue to move forward. Irregardless, we have to move forward. The words, if you will, the visual words that we put forth are incredibly important to just the overall environment and the overall health and overall well-being of us communicating the things that we're passionate about and excited about. And that can be anything from, in my regards, of developing comic books and making comic books, illustrations, those sort of things. And so my encouragement to you is, if you frankly, first and foremost, get off mainstream media. By all means, stop viewing it, stop it. It's absolutely a waste of time. Don't social media, in terms of your mainstream social media, I would always put them in that same category. It's an absolute waste of time and your effort. These are, how do I say it? They're really just areas where it's just wasting your time, and you're not pushing forth the things that you need to. For example, what that might look like is, a lot of times we view social media as just something that we consume. And in reality, we need to really stop consuming social media. Social media is something that, in a lot of ways, a lot of these social media platforms, not the mainstream ones, they're moving forth in a publisher fashion, which is fine, but it's obviously dishonest when they're sitting under a different clause. I believe it's the 230 clause. Correct me if I'm wrong. But essentially, they are writing under that, but in reality, they're obviously acting as publishers to the content that's being shared out there. And, regardless of those things, it's really important, like I said earlier, to continue forward, keep moving forward. But don't treat those areas, especially from a business standpoint, you cannot treat those areas as a place where you're going to be consuming that content. It's an absolute waste of time to consume that content from the perspective that you are, again, as a consumer, consumers consume things. As an entrepreneur, your goal is to help showcase your ideas, why your ideas are valuable, why they're unique, why they're make you sort of your superpower, if you will, and why they sort of set you apart from the rest. Obviously, we all have them. It's a matter of pulling back those things so that we might be able to see those as potentials, as possibilities, and be able to utilize them in a much more mature manner. And so when we're looking at social media, we're doing really a few things that I think are really important when looking at through social media. And a lot of this sort of things are ways that I encounter, even where I started out with in terms of news and where that information is and what's discernible, what's not, to sort of put out my, if you will, my BS meter. That's kind of a microcosm of how I go about treating my business. So, for example, when I post something out there, these are, yes, there's a sprinkling of things that I care about. There's also a sprinkling of things that matter to those that I want to attract to the business. Those that have a particular viewpoint on, they don't necessarily have to have the same political viewpoint. In fact, we need disagreement, which is incredibly important in terms of coming from a U.S. constitutional perspective, but that we come about it in a way that is beneficial. So what's that look like? One way that you do that is that when you're looking at that content, you're essentially determining, okay, would this particular content be something that my ideal client would pick up? If it is, great, you move forward. If it's not, then you move on from that post. The other part of that is you set aside a certain amount of time that you're spending on that particular platform. You're not spending all day on it. You might spend a little bit of time in the morning like you would be checking your email, if you will. It's kind of the same sort of task. Again, you don't want to consume your email the same way as your social media. You're basically throwing out the stuff that's junk that you don't need, things that's important, things that you need to address. The same sort of mentality that you go about with your social media. So with your social media, you're consuming it in a way that's, okay, is this a particular person that or content that is going to be something that my ideal client would be looking at? If it is, then like I said, you move forward. If it isn't, then you throw it out. If you're moving forward with that, you're doing a few things. One is you're noting what that content looks like. How is it successful in its message? Is this something that you would ultimately want to adopt with your overall process? But then that next layer down is that you're looking at what your, how do I say it? You're looking at who's looking at that content, who made a who made a comment, who made any kind of echoes on it, any of those sort of things, or who retweeted it, or any of those types of things. And you're looking at it from that perspective, and then that kind of starts building up the list as far as like, okay, this person is someone I would like to have a direct contact with, and determining, oh, okay, then from there you can starting a conversation, a much more deeper conversation with that person. Sometimes the conversation goes nowhere. Sometimes it goes to the place in the direction that you want to, but you might have sort of a quote unquote script with it, but you keep it pretty loose flowing because you're really after who that client is, what they're about. Again, do they align with what your quote unquote ideal client would be after? Because again, in terms of who those ideal clients are, they're really fitting under three categories, be it they're either looking for a relationship, they're either looking for wealth, or they're either looking for a way to run away, if you will. But they're looking for a way to either running towards pain or running towards from pain. So health, wealth, or if I said that all backwards, sorry about that. But health, wealth, and relationship. Sorry, got there. So health, wealth, and relationship. Those are your three categories in terms of the type of individuals that are out there. And when you think about yourself, do you fit under those three categories? And a lot of times, like Eli, I don't have anybody that I can get started with. That's fine. Start with yourself. Start with yourself in terms of, okay, when I look at a product, XYZ, am I looking at it from a health, wealth, or relationship perspective? It's going to fit under one of those three categories 100% of the time. And then from there, then you can start developing, again, almost treating yourself as sort of a white paper or a boilerplate to be able to understand, or a case study to be able to understand what you're exactly seeing and how it might apply to your overall endeavors, your overall work. And really what it comes down to is, and especially when you're small, and let's say, for example, I don't have a budget for some of these social media platforms, or maybe I sit in a spot where, if I can give them less money, the better, because they're obviously censoring those people around us, and maybe we want to head that direction. Whatever camp it might be. And obviously everyone's situation is just different based upon their needs, based upon their efforts. So not necessarily a comment in terms of, oh no, you're bad if you do, you're bad if you don't, sort of thing. But it's more about, where does it align in your mission to be able to promote the values that you're trying to promote, especially from a business perspective, and certainly from your artistic perspective, your creative perspective. So what you want to do is, from that, either that health, wealth relationship, and you're developing that boilerplate, you're developing that case study, and you're looking at those different works of art or those different, whatever you might be consuming, if it's a crowd fund or wherever it might be, you're using yourself as that case study so that you might be able to have, again, a better understanding of, if you are that ideal client, and if that, you're putting yourself in the shoes of that ideal client, and then from there determining how they might interact with that. And from there, you can start really developing. Again, a script is really not the right word behind it. I know that's sort of a back end, sort of a way of describing it, a back of house, if you will. Maybe a better term would be just it's kind of a loose form boilerplate, and really what you're after. Because ultimately, even though these individuals are looking for a relationship, they're looking for health, or looking for wealth, even though they might be looking for those types of things, it's sort of a thing that they even though they might be in kind of those realms, overall, it's still a relationship, and you're developing that as a relationship, something that and that's part of the process of determining what is important to those particular groups and what they're after. So, this show is designed to be basically just a 15-minute show. And just to get us started, there's lots of different reasons for me to do it. One is I wanted to be able to present a show that's consistent and sharing with you guys, and also be able to share that on several different platforms. Also wanted to provide it as a way that ultimately we might be able to bring in people that have different discussions or different things going on, and bring them into sort of this overall fold of TikvahMinds. And what does that mean? And really, if I would describe it, it's hope based upon action. So that's the end. That's my bumper music, and hope you guys have an excellent rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow.